All right, ladies and gentlemen, the long-awaited time is over. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. It's time to do the Tao now. Reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, ladies and gentlemen. Living the wisdom of the Tao. Coming to us from Lao-tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching, and Wayne Dyer, the author of this book itself, and as well as myself and some of my own extrapolations on these thoughts and ideas, ladies and gentlemen. And we are now all the way to the 46th verse of the Tao Te Ching. And so Wayne Dyer titles his little essay here on this 46th verse of the Tao Te Ching, Living Peacefully. Living peacefully, ladies and gentlemen, that's a subject that all of us need to think more about sometimes, because it's so easy for us, especially when we don't think about living peacefully, to begin doing the opposite more of the time on accident rather than on purpose. And so we want to begin doing the opposite of that, which would be living peacefully on purpose. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I ramble on any longer, let's dive right into the 46th verse of the Tao Te Ching. And it begins, when the world has the way, running horses are retired to till the fields. When the world lacks the way, war horses are bred in the countryside. There is no greater loss than losing the Tao, no greater curse than covetousness, no greater tragedy than discontentment. The world's faults is wanting more always. Contentment alone is enough. Indeed, the bliss of eternity can be found in your contentment. And that ends the 46th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Very fascinating, ladies and gentlemen, how it's talking about a comparison of times of war and of peace, and the different examples of this. While like when the world has the way, and the Tao translating to the way, running horses and war horses are retired to till the fields. But when the world lacks the way, this great harmony, war horses are bred in the countryside. And so there is no greater loss than losing the way, or the Tao, he says. What is this way? Well, that's what we've been discovering throughout this entire playlist, ladies and gentlemen. And so we're going to continue to discover what is that way, and how can we begin to make happiness the way. Because remember, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. But how do we do it? How do we begin to make that our way? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Lao-tzu said no greater curse than covetousness. Or I would think that means coveting other things. No greater tragedy than discontentment. So thinking about how do we do this way, and how do we make happiness the way? Well, it has to do with your level of contentment. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got yourself a nice beverage, maybe some tea. But contentment, I think, is something that can come from perspective. And understanding this way, this new perspective or awareness, can allow us to now come at whether we are not content or whether we are content based on a different perspective or awareness. And then our ability to become content is much greater, ladies and gentlemen. Contentment alone is enough, the end of this verse says. Indeed, the bliss of eternity can be found in your contentment. So, Wayne Dyer, what do you got to say, Dr. Wayne? Because I'm a big fan of yours, and we always get a lot out of this, ladies and gentlemen. So before I ramble anymore, let's dive right into living peacefully. and what Wayne Dyer has to say about what we can learn from this 46th verse of the Tao Te Ching. If you're presently evaluating your level of achievement on how much you've accumulated, Wayne says, prepare to sense a major shift in your state of personal satisfaction and contentment. Because verse 46 of the Tao Te Ching invites you to discover a more peaceful and self-satisfying way of knowing success, ladies and gentlemen. And as your determination to acquire more begins to weaken, your new views will change the world you've known. So that's kind of an example of what I was saying there about our perspective affecting our ability to have contentment. Your views will begin to change the world you've known, especially your new views, your new perspectives and outlooks. And so you'll find that the experience of inner peace becomes your true gauge of accomplishment, rather than how much you've accumulated, what your status is in the world, and all of these kind of things that we've come to focus on. How much money you've got. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? It's like, you will find that the experience of inner peace becomes your true gauge of success and accomplishment and allowing for contentment. Wayne continues, this 46th verse begins with a look at what happens when a planet loses its connection to the way. Countries begin needing to conquer more territory, and in their quest for more land, power, and control over others, they must constantly prepare for war. Lao-tzu speaks symbolically of horses here. When connected to the Tao, the animals fertilize the fields. And in turn, what does that do to the fields? I mean, you can just imagine the bounty of crops. But when disconnected from the Tao, from harmony, from the way, from nature, when disconnected from it, the beautiful creatures are bred for war, ladies and gentlemen. In a modern translation of the Tao Te Ching, my friend Stephen Mitchell, Wayne says, interprets this message in present-day terms. When a country is in harmony with the Tao, the factories make trucks and tractors. When a country goes counter to the Tao, warheads are stockpiled outside the cities. It's painfully obvious that our world has largely lost contact with the way, as described by Lao-tzu 2,500 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. But many things have happened since then, and will happen since, or from now. And so these days, so much of our energy is placed on breeding war horses, Wayne says, at the expense of using our resources to fertilize our fields so that we can live in peace. The United States is chock full of weapons of mass destruction, and we continually legislate more funding to make our weapons so menacing that they're capable of rendering our entire planet uninhabitable. And see, that's a different topic. The desire, Wayne continues, of more, to the desire of more, always not having enough. See, this goes back to that thing about accumulations being our own measure of success and contentment. It's like we can never get enough of what we don't need. We can never get enough of what we don't want. But this disease of more has created an environment that personifies Lao-tzu's observation that there is no greater tragedy than discontentment, ladies and gentlemen. But once again, how do we get this contentment and get rid of this lack of it or this discontentment? And so Wayne continues, but even if so many of our divine selves seem to be engulfed by the flames of unease, and see, that's a deep sentence there, ladies and gentlemen. It's like we have to really think about the words that are being said here. So he says, but even if so many, so he's not talking about all of us, but even if so many of our divine selves, like what your divine self is not the character persona that you play in life. You're like, oh yeah, I work here and this is my name and I make this much money, and I'm an average good person. It's like, sorry, that's not what we're talking about here when it comes to our own divine selves, ladies and gentlemen. There is a part of us that is with us throughout our life. And if you've been here with me in this journey on this channel, listening to what I've had to say and however way that I've been able to ramble it out to you, I wish I was better at that. That's why I've used these as kind of a vehicle for me to speak about these kind of things that I would speak about normally with somebody else, but it's hard to do just to a camera because you don't really have a reflection to bounce off of. And so, if that makes any sense, a reflection of information or a topic to bounce off of. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, our divine selves, this other part of us that goes through our lives with us, that is not our mask, and it is not our status in the physical world. But for some reason, we think those two things are connected with our contentment, and we do connect it, and then we're stuck with that discontentment. But even if so many of our divine selves seem to be engulfed, covered by flames of unease, think of how fire can easily be extinguished with the lack of oxygen or the addition of things like water. But so even if so many of our divine selves seem to be engulfed, surrounded by these weak flames of unease, you can begin the process of putting Lao-tzu's advice to work. So that's really the advice of all spiritual wisdom, psychological wisdom, and, philosophical wisdom, is it's like put this stuff into action in whatever way works for you. And there's no one way that works for everybody. And so when we're asking ourselves, how can we become more content? You literally have to try and practice. And so once again, the simple answer is, how do we become more content? Well, we change our perspective on the things that we are judging that bring us contentment. And so being at peace, living peacefully, requires us to change our perspective on how we gain the contentment. Now, you can begin the process by putting Lao-tzu's advice to work. When you truly understand, Wayne continues, what it means to live peacefully, satisfaction will begin to replace your desire for more. See, this desire for more is what tricks us into thinking that we are happy, because, like once you get a little more, you're like, yes, I can keep in the process. This is what I'm always talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It's like this psychology of striving rather than arriving. And when we're spending our whole life striving to get to the things that we think will give us contentment and happiness and peace, when we're always striving, when we get there to those things, whether it be a certain amount in the bank account, like, okay, I'm going to save up $10,000 this year. And then at the end of the year, you get to the $10,000 and you're like, well, wow, I'm going to save up, now $20,000 in the next, and I'm just putting out random numbers here, ladies and gentlemen, so don't get attached to the numbers, but you know what I mean. It's like we don't know how to actually arrive and be there, because that's a practice just as much as the practice of striving is. So this disease of more that Wayne always talks about, getting over wanting more and experiencing true peace. Hopefully I can remember that as the title for this video. Like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're getting value, smash the like button and consider subscribing, because that lets the algorithm know it should show this kind of video, this video in particular, to more people. And so But like I always say, it's funny how this, like, we have to make it the way rather than, I don't know. I'm going to keep going here, ladies and gentlemen. It's painfully obvious that our world has lost its connection to this way. And so this disease of more has created a lot of discontentment in us. So for us to be able to switch our disease of more, our striving rather than arriving, always, when we truly understand what it means to live peacefully, we can replace our desire for more with a satisfaction of the arriving that I'm talking about, or being here now and creating happiness in the moment through effort, through practice. And like the first time you swing a golf club, most people have the what Wayne calls the C syndrome. They'll take a basketball and they've never practiced before in their life, and they'll say, "I'm no good at basketball," and they'll shoot a shot and it bounces, doesn't even hit the rim. It misses wildly, ladies and gentlemen, and they'll turn around and look at somebody and go, see, I'm just not coordinated, or I'm just not good enough. And so when we're talking about creating happiness in the moment, you can't be using the C excuse, ladies and gentlemen, or have the C syndrome. You can't be like, see, I just can't be happy because I'm not, able to do that. It's like something that you have to take shots at. You have to take 1,000 shots to get any good at anything, ladies and gentlemen. For me to be able to paint the kind of paintings that people say are beautiful and that I'm talented in things, which I just, say it was an accident of practice. I usually don't add that second part, but it really is, ladies and gentlemen. If you just practice at something, you can get good at it and do it in a way to where it doesn't feel very amazing to you because it just comes naturally from the continued practice. This not only applies to the physical world, ladies and gentlemen, like basketball or art or whatever practice there be, music and dancing and football and whatever else you can think of, ladies and gentlemen. It's like this applies to the level of happiness we can experience in our moment-to-moment lives. And each moment adds up to be our entire life. So if we want to increase the quality of life, which is what I'm obsessed with, we need to increase the quality of each moment of our lives through a new kind of practice. And then we can get good at it, ladies and gentlemen. And instead of being angry that the leaves are dying on the tomato plant, you can be happy that there's 13 to 20 tomatoes on the plant, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a matter of perspective. You've got your perspective. Don't you just want to be happy? Now, let us continue. Hopefully that was a good ramble. If you liked it, comment yes in the comments below. Now, so we can replace this desire for more through a practice with our ability to experience more satisfaction in each moment rather than experiencing desire. See, these are two opposite feelings. It's like you either are grateful or you are lacking and need more. And it's a choice. I mean, that doesn't mean that the physical reality doesn't represent certain things. Like sometimes we may have less than others and compare that and tell ourselves we don't have enough. But once again, it's all relative. And so if we can switch our perspective, it doesn't matter really the physical situation we're in. I mean, as long as we're, sheltered and have a little bit of food and drink. Like if you don't have those things, then it's hard to even think deep anyway. So if we're, beyond survival instinctual things, then we can do this, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry again, I keep rambling. So Wayne continues, your world will begin to become tranquil as you change your own life and then touch the lives of your immediate family, your neighbors, your co-workers, and ultimately your nation and the entire planet. But begin by simply Just very simple. Thinking of the opening line of the famous prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. When you notice that you're demanding more of anything. So think of these ideas when you notice that you're demanding more. Silently say Tao, or in this sense, Lord, from Saint Francis, or, whatever that is for you. For me, it's like force or universe. Silently say, God, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love, ladies and gentlemen. As that instrument of peace, you will radiate tranquility to those in your immediate surroundings. And you'll feel the new flicker, this new feeling, a flicker of a new feeling and different success in contentment. Perhaps for the first time in your life, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what was really mind-blowing for me, was like, once I heard these kind of ideas and it made sense somewhat, hopefully I'm explaining it and articulating it in a way that makes sense today. But it's like once I was able to begin this practice, knowing that it had to be a practice, it wasn't something that's just going to happen to you, even though that's a possibility when you increase your connection to the harmony and, universal nature, whatever you want to call it, Tao, God, love, spirit. When you increase your connection and your ability to notice that, then you begin to notice these moments where you're like, wow, you'll feel this new flicker of a different kind of success. And you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. I'm actually happy in this moment, regardless of the things that I used to think were so much struggles in my own life. And even though they're still there, you're like, right now, I'm able to just re-examine my own personal perspective on my current experience. Despite what I used to think, you almost like create a new identity. But this is very deep stuff. So understand, ladies and gentlemen, it is a practice. And it starts with every day. You don't go to the gym once and get really fit and strong and healthy and, all of these things. It takes a continual, repetitive practice. So, with that being said, by refusing to lose the Tao, Wayne continues, regardless of how lost others are, and what our world's governments elect to do. So this is the thing. Once you get on these practices and things, you're like creating happiness in your own moments, regardless of the things that used to get you down and stuff, or, creating new perspectives in life. You start to see the world differently, and you're like, man, how does nobody know this? When you start to see all these things going on in the world, it's like, regardless of how lost others are and what our world's governments are choosing to do, you're living harmoniously, ladies and gentlemen. You're doing it. Your connection to the Tao, to the force, to nature, to harmony will make a difference. Remember, we've talked about the 100th monkey before and phase transition. When enough particles, I forget, I think it was electrons or something, line up a certain way, all the rest of them go bloop, 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 turn it. So when we can begin to change our vibration, talking about frequencies now, resonance, when we can begin to change our connection to everything, ladies and gentlemen, if that's what God is, because you're not separate from God. If God is universal, if the Tao is universal, if great spirit, grand organized intelligence, or great design is universal, then there's nowhere that it is not. So that means it is in you and also in all things, ladies and gentlemen. It's an underlying essence. And so your connection to this will make the difference, gradually inching Earth away from the precipice of discontentment. Most people would say destruction. But we're really just talking about discontentment here, ladies and gentlemen, the inability to experience peace because of our perspectives, our disease of more, that Lao-tzu called no greater tragedy. And so the sublime Hafiz, our favorite wonderful poet, beautifully sums up the kind of success that we have been talking about here today, the kind of success that Wayne Dyer is referring to in his poem. Hafiz is referring to in his poem here, called "Would You Think It Odd?" question mark. He says, "Would you think it odd if Hafiz said, 'I am in love with every church, every mosque and temple, and any kind of shrine, because I know it is there that people say the different names of the one God.'" Woo! Hafiz is always the best, ladies and gentlemen. I wish there was a round of applause button, but smash the like button if you haven't already, because that just summed up what I was trying to say there when I was describing our connection to this thing. It's like, would you think it odd if I said that I am in love with every church and every mosque and every temple and every kind of shrine? Because I know that it is there that the people say the different names of the one God. Powerful. So getting back to Lao-tzu here, Wayne says, here are his messages from the powerful 46th verse that are practically applicable today in our personal life. So if you haven't heard anything that you can do in your life today from me in this video, I would find that confusing, because all I've been talking about is practicing changing what gives you the feeling of contentment, which is usually some kind of feeling of success or accomplishment, which goes back to that always wanting more, not having enough kind of thing. And it's perspective. So how can we, so like Chase, if I still don't get it, how can I practically begin to change my perspective and my viewpoint of what success is, and so that I can begin to try to experience more contentment from a new version of success by feeling more peace and satisfaction in each moment through a practice. See, even that's complicated to say. But if you're asking that question, this is why you want to expand the description below the video and get this book for yourself to put it on your shelf. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you right here, but just do that, because at the end of each of these chapters, Wayne gives us practical ways, a couple suggestions, and a do the Tao now on how we can apply this great wisdom into our lives, ladies and gentlemen. So, number one, practice gratitude and contentment every day. So when you wake up in the morning, when your feet hit the floor every single morning without exception, Wayne says, say, thank you for an opportunity to live in a state of contentment, even though you're not feeling it. See, this is the kind of the fake it till you make it kind of thing, or build the repetition, and eventually. But so thank you for the opportunity, not only just to live, but that I can appreciate it. And then invite the magical energy of the Tao, the universe, to freely flow through you and inform your responses throughout the day. You're in harmony with your source when you're soliciting gratitude and gratification in these ways. So the way that that's interesting. I haven't heard the word gratification come up in this in a very long time, but that is a key point. Getting a sense of anyways, gratification, ladies and gentlemen, and gratitude, and practicing it in our thoughts and in our words. So number two, be one with your nature. In a world that seems to produce more and more violence, become a person who chooses to be an instrument of peace. So this means just in our conversations, a lot of people like to talk a lot about, about a lot of bad things. And what does that do? What good does that do, ladies and gentlemen? Really ask them the question when it's the right time. Because usually when people are the kind of people that like to talk about a lot of bad things, they don't want to be asked why they do that. Because then they realize that they're doing something stupid. Or stupid is too harsh for you. They're doing something that is ignorant. They don't realize that it's not good and that they're doing it for no good reason. Anyways, become one with your nature, ladies and gentlemen. So in a world that seems to produce more and more violence, especially in entertainment, become a person who chooses to be an instrument of peace. Let your nature be the horses that are bred to till the fields. Feed the hungry and offer comfort to those who are less fortunate. Live as if you and the Tao are one, as if you and God or you and everything is one, which of course you are when you're in a natural state. When enough of us are able to do this, Wayne says, we'll reach a critical mass, a phase transition, and eventually the great way will surpass even the demands of the ego. I truly believe, Wayne says, to use a baseball analogy, that nature always bats last. Interesting. And we will finish up here, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've really gotten value today. If you have, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Do the Tao now, ladies and gentlemen. How do we do this, Wayne? You've already told us all this stuff, and it's still kind of confusing for me. So it's like, Wayne says, set aside time to make a conscious effort. So practicing with your thoughts to spend peaceful energy, to send peaceful energy to someone or some group who you think of as the enemy. This is really, especially people wrapped up in politics and things, or, wrapped up in whatever it be, any kind of two-sided thing. It's like there's always got to be the enemy. And so try, because you can begin to really change your mind when you can see that you can do this, when you make a conscious effort to send peaceful energy to someone in your life, even someone simple who, maybe just isn't, maybe you have struggles with this person and you always had a hard time communicating and they always seem not to like you, or maybe it's somebody who, did wrong by you in some way and you've never really gotten over it. See, it's not the snake bite that kills you, but it's the venom that you allow to continue coursing through your veins. And in this sense, it is not a physical venom, but it's a feeling that we have when we're so connected to the want for revenge and not connected to this ability to be, to choose. Despite the way things are, we see a connection and we see a harmony that is available in the universe, and we'd really rather experience that more often than these, the discontentment that comes from whatever negative thing it be, rather, whether it be the enemy or just what I was just talking about. But so make a conscious effort, a practice to send peaceful energy to someone or some group like this. Include a competitor or an alienated family member, a person of different religious persuasion, or those you oppose in a government, or just even someone you've had a simple disagreement with. Then literally send something to them if that feels okay to you. So you don't have to do that. And usually it's more important just to practice the mental process of being able to do this and really feel it. Like I send them love, even though I may have a bit of anger and frustration or resentment or whatever it is that you've created for this opposing party that is supposedly the enemy, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about creating peace here again, finding contentment. But, you know, it's being able to switch your mind for a short moment and say, all right, I send them peace, send them love, send them this energy that is the opposite of the enemy. You don't even have to send them, you don't have to talk to them, and it's just the practice that really makes a difference. But so Wayne is saying, if you really want to make this work in, tenfold, then literally send something to them, if that feels okay to you, such as a flower, a book, a letter, and begin your conscious effort today, right now, to surrender to the Tao, to the universe, to the great, and know authentic success, which has no separation, ladies and gentlemen. Boom to knowledge. That's a boom to wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. And that is a boom to understanding true success. Understanding true success and creating real peace in your life. That was a deep one, ladies and gentlemen. I really got a lot out of it. I loved it. Some of these are just kind of overall summaries of great, great topics. It's like, this idea of peace and contentment related to success. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a fantastic Do the Tao Now, Tuesday Tao. Change your thoughts, change your life. Living the wisdom of the Tao, ladies and gentlemen. And so I think I'll leave it there without rambling anymore, because I think I rambled enough, ladies and gentlemen. It's already 1 p.m. here, so hopefully I have this video uploaded by 1:30 or 2 for you. And so once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate everybody, especially those of you who spend time here with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu and all the wonderful authors and poets of the wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. But remember, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover a greater awareness, a greater understanding of the wisdom of the ages. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, that happiness is the way, the activity, what we bring to life. And so when we can begin to realize that, what we've been striving for, remember the striving versus the arriving, what we've always been striving for and telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, and always wanting to be happy, that becomes irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen, because we have created the ability for ourselves to bring it to the present moment and actually begin to practice happiness and truly experience the contentment that we've always been looking for. And then the destination becomes irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen, because the entire journey is wonderful. All righty. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Expand the description below to get yourself a copy of this book. I have that linked below in the description, or show notes, whatever you want to call it, as well as my landscape paintings, a link to the CLC Paint Etsy shop. That's my Etsy shop. And it felt so good to sell the first one for this year. It was like, wow, because it's been a long time, ladies and gentlemen, and they're all there for you, ready to ship, as well as a link to C60 Purple Power, the amazing antioxidant product that everybody should give a try. I've been using it for multiple years, and I continue to use it to this day. But once again, remember, ladies and gentlemen, it comes down to a practice of a perspective to create peace and contentment. All right, love you, ladies and gentlemen. Until tomorrow with some Wednesday wisdom. So be sure to return for tomorrow's wisdom. Thank you.